G'day guys, and welcome back to the channel, and say hello to my little friend, my beautiful little 427, ready to go into our 57 Bel Air, and built by Sam and the guys at West End Performance. And in a way, that's part of the reason why I wanted to do this introduction. I wanted to pay my respects to Sam Fenech, a lovely guy, a really top bloke who I only really met last year, and to be honest, I wish I'd met him a long time earlier than that. Sam just came across as very authentic, very genuine guy. He was a warm-hearted bloke who liked to chat and was very knowledgeable on his engines, and to be honest, the type of bloke that just made you feel comfortable to be around him. As I say, I didn't know him well. I only met him last year when I was getting this 427 built, and spent a little bit of time with him, both discussing the engine on the phone and in person, and also spent a bit of time with him in the dyno room. And if any of you go back through the videos, you'll see that I did a couple of videos last year at West End, one where we walked around his complex and looked at the cars and the workshop and what have you, and also another one in the dyno room where it was just me and Sam, and yeah, he was sort of doing the dyno on this thing, and I was so wrapped too with what he got out of it. I mean, it was basically a stock engine, and he still managed to get 527 horsepower out of it, just with, you know, adding a cam and the fuel injection and the electronic distributor, what have you. So as I say, I just wanted to pay respects to Sam. I was actually feeling like it was really hard to get motivated to make a video and to carry on. I'm not sure why, but I think I was really quite deeply affected by him passing, and look, I know hundreds of other people were too, people that knew him a lot better than me, people that were a lot closer to him. So I'm not going to do like a tribute video or anything like that, because it's not my place. As I say, I had only really just met him and started to get to know him. But let me tell you something. In that time that I did get to know him a little bit, chatting to him and that, I really looked forward to seeing him again. I really looked forward to doing more things regarding cars and engines with him. And I had even discussed with him about the drags. I'd never actually been to a proper drag meet. And he says, why don't you come down, you know, they were having the big drag meet end of January at Sydney Dragway, and he says, come down to that. And I was looking forward to that as well. So it's really sad to hear about his passing. And I just want to, you know, extend my condolences to his family and friends, or anyone who may be watching this that knew him. And just to say that the world really needs more people like Sam, people that are more giving, more open with their time and with their knowledge. And yeah, very sad for everybody who knew him. So anyway, we are going to continue on, and we're going to in this video, we're going to be moving on to the 57. So while we're on the subject of this little beauty here, we're going to jump on to the 57 chassis and see what's going on with that, because we did sort of leave it midstream. Any of you that were watching previously would have seen that we did the chassis strengthening kit, and then it all sort of came to a grinding halt. Well, there were reasons for that. At the time, I did have somebody help me in the workshop. They left, and I sort of was basically just sort of trying to get through things on my own, and the other reason was there were complications with that chassis which we may not have discussed in full, but it was kind of because I was kind of trying to decide what to do with it, you know. So now I decided what to do with it. We're moving on, we're kicking on with it, and I hope you enjoy it. Oh, just one other thing. I sort of slipped my mind, and that is these T-shirts, these Sam Fenech T-shirts. As I understand it, the people producing them are basically donating the proceeds from these T-shirts to Sam's family. So I'd encourage anybody watching this who hasn't already bought one, please jump online and grab yourself a couple of T-shirts and help support a good cause. I got mine through Overtaking Lane. I can't really advise you too much more of that right at the moment, but just jump online, Google Sam Fenech T-shirts or Overtaking Lane, and you'll find a link where you can buy them. So cheers. Alright, so finally after what seems like a millennium, I'm back on the 57 chassis. And what I have been doing, I'm sorry I didn't film any of it guys, was I've been trying to correct some butchery. So what happened is when we first bought this car and pulled it apart, we found this schmozzle. I think it went something like that, or was it? Oh, look, I don't know. It doesn't really. Might have been like that. Yeah, it was like that. Okay. So, actually, if you just come around here, Hayden, and just look at it, you can sort of see how much of the chassis rail that actually removed. So, this was how it was before. This was in the chassis rail. So they'd basically chopped the whole side of the chassis rail out of the inside and made this up. And it's out of some fairly thick metal too, I've got to tell you. This is probably about 4 mil thick. And so that they could fix the steering box out of something like, you know, an old Falcon, or I don't know what it is, but whether it's an old Falcon or Holden steering system or whatever, it was obviously, you know, using the complete system with steering box and rods and whatnot was too wide for this chassis. They've chopped the chassis. So after a lot of debating, I ended up deciding that I would try to go ahead and fix it. So we went ahead and chopped that out, and the rest you can see in these pictures. After chopping it out and then straightening the outside part of the rail, which I didn't need to remove, I just simply had to take some of the dents out of it. I've gone ahead and put these, you could call them steel, well it's just some steel rod, it's probably about 6 mil thick or whatever, and that was just to basically give me the profile of the shape that I needed. And then I went ahead and cut some cardboard templates to make the actual side of the chassis rail and then shaped it. And so the steel rods were basically to give me a profile and a shape to work to, but also in order to be able to give me a backing, if you like, for the weld between the top plate that was eventually going to be cut and made and the actual side plate. So when you get two plates together, you could sort of put them together like that and you could do a fillet weld along them. That's not going to be much good in this case because we wanted to end up with a surface that had, well, with an edge that had a nice rounding to it, you know, much like the original. And so the way I did it is I made it so that the side plate of the rail and that top plate had a fairly decent gap, enough so that I could put a 6 mil rod up behind it, and then it would give me something to weld into. So that's what I did. I went ahead and welded them up, as you can see in the pics here, and then went ahead and planished it. And this is what we've ended up with, and I think that it's turned out fairly good. I've got no problems with strength because, as you could see in the pictures, we did have some fish plates behind them, not just in the side, but I also put fish plates in these top ones, and the fish plates basically leaving a bit of a gap between the actual where the plates join up either side, a couple of mil gap, and then I plug welded into the fish plates on either surface, and then for the vertical weld I had a couple of mil gap so I could weld, the penetration of the weld would penetrate both bits of metal but also into the fish plate. And then as I said, same on the top. And then we've ended up with what we've ended up with, which is more than pleasing for me, because when I first saw it, you think when I started with something like this and had to chop that out, not only did I have to chop that out, but they'd actually butchered they'd bent this in and done all sorts of stuff. So anyway, happy days. We're back to looking fairly normal up front here. Now I do have to do the bottom, but I won't be doing that until I turn the whole thing over, because if any of you watched that episode ages ago where we put this strengthening bar kit in, I've gone ahead and I've welded tops and sides of all of these fish plates, and yeah, none of the bottoms have been done, so we'll wait until we're ready to tip it over and then we'll do the bottom of this and then the bottom of all of those. But what we're up to at the moment is another issue, and that is the bending of the chassis. So we actually have to do a bit of straightening. Now again, if any of you watched the episode I did ages ago where we welded those in, we also had an issue where because this car had actually been in an accident at some point, it had actually been well, we assume, and we think we're pretty much on the money, that it's been rear-ended in the passenger side if you're in America, but rear-ended in the right-hand rear. And subsequently what happened is the chassis rail on this side kicked down about 25-30 mil at this point, and also across this way to the right by about 15 mil. And we got the vertical bend out. We actually, and you'll see this in the original episode where we worked on this, we actually had to heat this up. I know it's not the right thing to do to heat chassis rails, but we had no choice. There was no other option but to heat it. So we just applied some heat. We didn't make it too hot, we just got it hot enough where it would move without ripping or buckling. So that's done, and that's all correct. And now what we've got to do is we've got to just move this whole thing over 15 mil. So we're all set up for it now. So that's what we'll do. We'll go ahead and we'll start jacking. Now, what I noticed, I did a bit of a push before on it, and I got about 2 mil out of it. But to get 2 mil, I actually had to move it what looked like about 30 or 40 mil. So it's a case of moving it further than you need and then letting it spring back to where it's happy, where it's not under stress. So actually, if you want to look over there, you can see the witness marks I've put there. So the first one is 15 mil, the other one's 30. So we're going to go right past the 15 mil mark. We're just going to see exactly how much it takes, and just beware that this thing could suddenly explode and jump off the chassis table, but hopefully not. So we've probably gone past the 30 mil mark now, have we?
Not just yet, about 4 mil. Yep. Okay. And we'll let the pressure off and we'll see how far back she springs. If you want to come around this side. So this is the mark that originally was on the edge of the chassis rail. So see that we had to move 30 mil and we've got, what, about 4? So that shows how much we're going to have to push this thing. I really don't want to use heat on it again, but we'll just see how we go. We've gone past 30? Yeah, it's about 5 mil past.
Alright, keep going. You can hear the stress now. I could hear a little tick then. Okay, and we'll back it off. How far have we gone there? Probably 75 mil. Okay. I'll back her off and we'll see what we end up with. Ooh. Ooh, we might have gone too far. Well, it's gone a couple of mil too far, but I don't know if I should worry about it or not. I could pull it back though, I suppose. Alright, let's just see how fussy we can be. And just give me a sec, we'll come back to you. Alright, so I'm just going to try to pull her back a little bit. There seems to be a lot of flex in the back of this thing, but you know, I sort of want to get it bang on, so. What have we got here? Well, that almost got it. I'll just do one more pull and then
You should be on that mark over there, are you?
Yep,
Are you on the 15 mil?
it is.
Beautiful. Okay. Well, that would conclude our exercise. Go ahead and unhook that. Alrighty, so yeah, that's really good. So now we've got basically the repairs done on accident damage and on some really bad backyard bodgery. So is that a word? Well, it is now.
It is now.
Yeah, cool. Okay. So now that that's done, I'm probably just going to go over and just sort of inspect this and just make sure there's no little repairs, like, you know, any little cut nicks and stuff like that which might need a repair, like a pickup done. What I'm talking about is if you've nicked something with a grinder, you should probably go back and put a little weld in it, you know, and that's called a pickup. So if you need to add metal just in a little place like where it's been nicked or you've got undercut, you'd generally call that a pickup. You sort of put a bit of weld in there, plenish it off, make it smooth. So I'm just going to go ahead and look for things like that, and once I'm happy, then I'll go ahead and release all these welds that are holding it to the table, and then we'll turn her over, we'll put her upside down, and we'll come back and we'll finish welding underneath. So, yeah.
Sounds like a plan.
Okay.